Hey everyone, it's Jacob Jake's Metal Chat. Hope you're all well and welcome to episode 75 of my Metal Vault, where I will be exploring and showing you my favourite albums within heavy metal to thrash metal to death metal, black metal, doom metal, sludge metal, folk metal, you name it. All of that excellent stuff, as well as talking about the albums. I will also be talking about the bands, so a brief history and any releases leading up to the album that I have picked. And this album here is just excellent, excellent death metal, underground early 90s death metal from an awesome band. And the third Swedish death metal band that I'll be talking about, because I got one more to talk about in my next episode, and then is a bands from here, over in America, and from the rest of Europe. So a mix and mash after the last Swedish death metal band that I talk about in episode 76. But in this episode, I'm talking about God Macabre. And I got to see these guys in 2017, and hearing this live was just pure magic. And this album definitely needs more love. I don't see very many others talking about this album. There are two other YouTubers that I know within the VC, and I know personally, and have talked about this album right here. So let's crack on with it. It is, once again, God Macabre. This is their 1993 album. This is their only release they ever did. The Winterlong. Incredible artwork right there. This is a re-release from Relapse Records because it's got some extra tracks there. The last three are from when they were Macabre N, and I'm pretty sure the one after the last song from the original release of this, of course, this is the reissue because it's got those extra tracks. I'm pretty sure that would have been a Macabre N track as well. I'm not entirely sure, but it's a heavy song. And there's the CD. And of course, show the artwork once again without the light reflecting off the case. And it folds out like that. That's who's in the band. I mean, all did it. I mean, his vocals are just stupidly insane. And he was one of the producers on this album, along with Ola as well. So those two produced this album. And you're going to know this name in a minute once I get to the album itself. So some band pictures there. Some lyrics there. And band pictures there. There's the man himself on vocals wearing some cool shades and his leather jacket. Because if you find some footage, and I'll put in the description below of them performing one of the songs on this album. I don't know how he wasn't getting hot in that jacket, but man, what a trooper. But let's talk about God Macabre. Of course, they are from Sweden. I'm not even going to try and pronounce where they're from. So, Vorburg, I think that's how it's pronounced. I might have mispronounced it, so I do apologize. They formed under that name in 1991, but before that, from 1988 to 1989, they were under a different name, which I'm not even going to try and pronounce here. And then from 1989 to 1991, they were called Macabre End, which had one demo and one EP, which is under the same name, Consumed by Darkness. Independent release. The demo was the independent release, and of course the three tracks that are on the re-release of the Winterlong are also were of course were on the Macabre End demo. And of course the EP under the same name, released by Corpse Grinder Records, which is no longer going. They were out of France. They specialized in death and black metal. Dissection was also on this label, as well as Apoth and Asheron, which not the one from America, the one from Australia, which changed the name to Abrillium. I think that's how it's pronounced. I might have just said that wrong, but awesome band overall. And then they did a split release. under with this name and the Macabre name called 1990 to 1993. So this album and that EP, and as well as a live album called Eve of Souls Forsaken, which I'm not sure where what show this is or where it was recorded, but they do have a cover of The Day Man Lost, which is by Carnage. Excellent, excellent stuff. It says here they were one of the first death metal bands in Sweden. And of course, if you know the Swedish death metal scene well, you know how many more bands came out around that time. But let's talk about the album in question in its entirety, The Winterlong. Only going to be talking about the songs from the first track all the way to the seventh track. But the Life's Verge is a fucking heavy track, and the Consumed by Darkness demo slash EP is just solid as well. This was originally released by MBR Records. They were out of Germany. They're no longer going either, mainly specialized in death metal. Uh, Crematory and Grave, the other two Swedish death metal bands on it. Everyone, if you are familiar with those two and you're more into your death metal, you're going to know those two bands very well. Because Grave released a demo on there called Anatomia Corporis Human, and there's a band from America called Insanity, and of course we have Malediction, who released their Mold of an Industrial Horizon EP in 1992 on this label. And of course, this album right here was released on that very label on the 13th of December 1993. The Relapse release was the 1st of June 2014, so nearly 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 2 years after. No, wait. Yeah, nearly 2 years after it was released. I was trying to think then. Um, Still holds up today. Excellent stuff right here. I know I said that a lot. I tend to repeat myself. But let's talk about the album itself. Let's talk about the songs. We got Into Nowhere, which just comes in straight away. You got the guitars, you got Pear's vocals. He, just he knows how to deliver a. It's crossed between a growl and a scream. I don't know how to actually put it, but it's just got so much power behind that voice. Of course, all the rest of the guys, with the guitars and the bass and the drums. Well, one of the guys on it is doing lead guitar and bass, and the Mellotron, which is a keyboard, and did a lot of the songwriting, and Ola doing the rhythm guitar. We got Nicholas on drums, of course. Where is he? Per Bodar. I think I just said his last name, so I'll just say Per from now on vocals. So Into Nowhere just starts off strong, and then you got Lost continuing on from there, and then we get our first instrumental, which is the heavier one from the second one. So that's Teardrops, with that sort of death doom feel to it, because it's quite slow, mid tempo at times. The whole album can be like that as well, definitely, and that's why I think I really love this album, because it's got that speed that you get in death metal, but it also has the doom side of it as well. And then you got Ashes of Morning Life, and just continue on from where Teardrops ended. And then onto my favorite track, Spawn of Flesh, and that is just to me a stupidly heavy track. And again, the vocals behind that, when he does the growls and that growl scream combo, just delivers it. But in the description, you'll find a live performance of that, and you can just see how powerful his voice is there. And he definitely just he's just growling, screaming his lungs out in that song, and everything on there is just So well done. And then we got Lamentation, which is the second instrumental, the last instrumental on this album, and it's completely different from the rest of the album because it's more melodic. It's got more, it's more of acoustic feel. You know, it's got the acoustic guitars. It's more of a melodic sounding, like song instrumental, and it's sort of like, all right, we're gonna let you calm down for a bit, just relax for a while for 2 minutes and 33 seconds, and then getting on to the last song, which just goes straight back into it with In Grief and just ends this album perfectly. Just absolutely just knocks it out of the park. And just, man, so damn good. If you are into your death metal, more into your death metal, I'm talking to all you hardcore death metal maniacs out there. If you are not familiar with God Macabre, do check these guys out. Give this album the well-deserved listen that it deserves, as well as all the other albums that I've spoken on about on here. But I know this album would have been overlooked back in the day, and there's definitely those who were, of course, into the bigger bands like Cannibal Corpse, Suffocation, Obituary, Morbid Angel, Death, that would have been listening to guys like this as well. You're probably one of those back in the day that was like, oh, I don't know, or you never did come across them and you only just discover them either this year or you discover them like 2, 3, maybe even 5 years ago, or you just weren't into the style of death metal that they were doing. But to me, this is just an excellent piece of Swedish death metal history, just excellent death metal overall. And you know me, I love my Swedish death metal. Be it if it has the HN2 or not, it's still an awesome, awesome release right here. And the artwork is just like the album, it's dark and it's atmospheric and it's just, I don't know what else more I can say. It's such a great album and one of my favorites. Dylan HN2 Powell and Mark G with C are the other two that I've spoken about this album. Mark on his last video and Dylan on his last collection update. And man, so so freaking good. And I am on the hunt for an original copy of this. If I can find one, brilliant. But sometimes if you try to find an original copy, it might cost your arm and a leg. But the sound on the Relapse reissue sounds really good as well. And the one who did the album back in the day, he's done Dismember, he's done Amon Amarth, Entombed. I can go on forever. Excruciate, Thomas Skogsberg. The famous. Let's get him back up again and say his name one more time. Thomas Skogsberg. Skogsberg. Yeah, just to repeat again. He's just says there, of course, runs the famous Sunlight Studios. His production has been credited to the classic Buzz or Sunlight sound throughout the early 90s in such bands as Dismember, Entomb, Grave, and Nirvana 2002. And that's just half of the blinking list he's done. And of course, that is one of them. Mr. Stogsberg, you know how to produce a great album. Like, well, actually, engineer, should I say, and Ola Peer producing the album alongside. And my overall conclusion of this album, excellent death metal. It's heavy, no question, dark, atmospheric. Lamentation, adding that melodic element to it. In Grief is a bit more of a doomier type of a song when it slows down, but It blends it really well, but this is straight up death metal, and it is a timeless masterpiece. Absolutely. Every album I've spoken about on this series, timeless masterpieces, and definitely an album that half of you may have not already heard. So when you get that chance, go and check this out. You will, if you are really into your underground death metal, you will not be disappointed. God Macabre and the Winter Long, absolutely fantastic. Just excellent, excellent. Underground death metal right here. Just pure, awesome Swedish death metal. And that is the end of this episode. Sorry it took so long to do a new episode. Been very busy lately, but I will be getting back on to the next lot of episodes of this series, as well as a collection update. Just waiting for one album to arrive, and then I can do my collection update. And if you enjoyed this video and also have enjoyed this whole series so far, because I've got so many more videos to do, don't forget to like this video, share it around, comment down below about when you first heard this album, or even the God Macabre stuff. No, Macabre end, should I say? You know, if you're one of the fans who's seen them back in the day, what were their shows like back in the day? Because I got to see them in 2017, and that was excellent. Well, what were they like in just like small clubs and like smaller venues like bars and clubs, and even I think it was like sports halls as well. What was that like seeing them live? And most importantly, if you are new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel to keep up to date with more episodes from my Metal Vault, more collection updates, metal chats when I get more guests lined up. And that's it for me. Hope you enjoyed. I'm Jake and Jake's Metal Chat. Keep that banner of metal well and truly high. And I will see you all in another episode of my Metal Vault. And do take care of yourselves.